I wouldn't even say that Patrick Bet-David is an acolyte of Ben Shapiro. He's his own thing, which is pretty disgusting. But he has a very large platform that is a grifter's extraordinaire, as we know. Very favorable to Israel. He's one of those Iranians who is all about capitalism, the worst kind. So naturally, he's in favor of regime change, dismantlement of society, pro-Western democracy, as he puts it. But he's been very much on board with pushing the narrative that the biggest problem is Islam, it's China, and it could be Russia, but it's certainly not Israel. No way. Can't possibly be Israel. But he brings on two members of the CIA, and this conversation took a very interesting turn.
Give you 4 countries to be paranoid about. Which of them would you give the biggest percentage all the way to the smallest? So you have these 4 categories. You have Islam.
Okay.
So within Islam, we have IRGC, Qatar, just include all of them. We have Israel, because you know Israel is also coming up a lot of different places. Then we have China, and we have Russia. Where does your paranoia lie the most for the next 10 years with these 4 different countries as well as Islam? Just rank them in order and give like 45% would be Islam, 25 would be this.
Yeah, so China takes the massive chunk of pie for me. China is the #1 strategic threat to the United States.
What did you put on China?
50%.
Okay.
Islam, I gave 5%. I'm not worried about Islam. There are other countries that need to worry about Islam, but we're not one of them. Russia, I gave 20%, and then Israel, I gave 25%. So I am actually saying we should be more paranoid of Israel than Russia.
Now, I will say this. This gentleman is probably as correct as you can be if you just flipped to and kept the percentages where they are. I would say Israel is 50%. I would say China's 25%. I would say Russia's probably even less than 20%. But somewhere in that neighborhood, let's just even give them that. And we'll just say Islam is 5%. I'd say that's probably about accurate. And I do think that there are things from an international perspective that we should be concerned about, but there is no question that Israel is our biggest concern. Now, needless to say, this is not what Patrick Bet Star of David brought these guests on to do. Again, these are spooks. These are people in the highest levels of intelligence telling you where the real problem lies. Now, of course, they're being somewhat tepid about whether they're going to truly go after Israel the way that they should. But even this is an incredible admission, and he doesn't know what to do about it.
Islam, 5 times Islam.
5 times Islam.
Let's start off with Islam first, and then we'll go to Israel. Why did you put Islam the lowest out of all of them at 5%?
I don't see Islam as a threat to the United States. And that's what I was seeing it as. Paranoid to me, right? What am I paranoid? It's not Islam. Islam is it's difficult for them to reach us with any significance. When they reach us, it's difficult for them to bypass our security systems, whether they're cybersecurity systems, police systems, border security systems, etc. Meanwhile, Israel actually has the ability to drag us into all sorts of shit that actually does impact us. We are all paying more money for oil right now because of Israel.
Now, this is what we talk about at great length on the channel. The thing about the Strait of Hormuz that makes essentially Israel the end game for the United States, as Iran would have it, we have 2 choices. We either give up Israel and save our economy, or we continue down the road with Israel and lose our economy. There's a reason why they're frustrated that they got dragged into this by Israel, because now they've basically backed themselves into a corner and they don't know how to get out of it. And that's what this member of intelligence is telling us. I think he's hedging his bets by continuing down, the traditional road of saying it's all about Red China. but he's kind of throwing it out there that, yeah, Israel's a much bigger problem than we're willing to admit, even to an audience like this, which is given the Hasbara narrative 24/7 because that's how Patrick Bet-Starved David makes his money. He's got more to say.
We are all suffering under an international outcry against American leadership because of Israel. The whole world questions whether or not the president of the United States is even making his own decisions or whether he's the puppet of Israel. So Israel has an incredible ability to frustrate and put us in quagmire that Islam just doesn't have.
Okay, so what's the worst thing that Israel could do to us? Go a little further. So because you put 25%, that's a real threat. You put it bigger than Russia and Islam. So what are some things they could do to us?
So I'm not worried about Israel sending a bomb into New York. If that's what you're worried about, we're worried about different things. Israel could easily launch a false flag operation that sends us into a war. They can have an Israeli who poses as a Palestinian, who goes in and causes some kind of crazy shit in Syria, and now all of a sudden the entire United States is engaged in Syria because of something that Israel set up as a false flag. And that is
exactly why we need to cut off this relationship. And I do think that there is a lot of truth to that in his statement. But if there's one thing we know for sure, Israel's historical pattern from the USS Liberty to 9/11 to October 7th, false flags, that's what they do. That's their modus operandi. They've done it many times over, but those are the most obvious examples. And as such, we are being told, point blank, right now, that this is what we're in for if we don't deal with them properly. We're trying. We're doing every which way we can to deal with them properly. But it's not enough, which is why we're called revolutionary change. It's going to require that in order to fully break away. But we're getting there.
something that the Mossad does all the time. They do it very well, very eloquently. They already selectively share intelligence with the United States. And the reason you selectively share intelligence is to create the opportunity for misdirection or malintent. So Israel's already involved in these kinds of operations at a very high success rate. That's what I'm concerned about. I'm concerned about them backstabbing the United States. I'm concerned about them undermining our national interests. I'm concerned about them choosing, like they did with Iran, to escalate rhetoric about a certain issue that's more important to them than it is to us, that then goes on to affect us.
Okay, perfect. So then the infiltration of Islam, some say, to EU and what's happening to a lot of those countries, UK, Germany, you're seeing it all over the place. And to the point where Rupert Lowe did a paper, the 250,000, stories of girls being raped in UK, 87% being Pakistanis and Muslims. And then seeing what's going on in the US right now with New York City, Mamdani wins, his 3 individuals that also won. So that's not going into the financial capital of the world in the States. Do you have any concern of them? They're infiltrating the United States in the future.
Is this guy seriously out of his fucking mind? Like, honestly, I can't see a scenario in which he's not being paid to say this. There's no conceivable way that he's not being paid. It's not possible. He's talking about Zoran and the people he elected as Islamist terrorists, essentially? Is that what he's implying? Because that's what it sounds like to me. I mean, I may be overreacting a little bit, but I don't think so. Islamic penetration of the United States? It's the last line of defense. It is the last true line of defense for the Zionist cause. It's all they have left. Anti-Muslim bigotry. That is what they're counting on. They are counting on that being the reason why Zionism will continue. And I'm here to tell you that we will do everything in our capacity to make sure that it does not. But PBD is a paid shill, pure and simple.
So here, this is another thing I think is very interesting, right? Islam is the only thing on this list that's not a nation state.
It is.
It's a religion.
That's right.
I'm not worried about a religion. I'm worried about people, and people identify sometimes as a religion. But it's interesting to me that we're actually weighing nation state threats against religious threats. So when we talk about Islamic people in New York, I don't see them as a threat just because of what they believe. That goes against American values. I see threats as nation states and transnational threats that self-identify, like Al-Qaeda, right?
Or Ben Shapiro, if we're being honest.
So I don't see Islam and Islamic people
and
as
if
a
you,
threat.
but if you notice, I put it as consider it being IRGC, which is
Yes.
all the proxies, and
Correct.
consider Qatar, which Qatar is funding a lot of different things in the States. If we were to qualify it that way, would your opinion change?
Possibly. I think it would change in how the number breaks down based on what we qualify.
But break that down from the Israel standpoint. So you
Okay.
put 25% Israel threat and you're paranoid about
Correct.
that. What are different things that they can do to harm us?
Israel can hack into our cyber systems. They can hack into our core water, power grid, you name it. I mean, China has hacked into our personnel records for the military. Israel is far more capable than China is in terms of cyber capability.
And there you have it. This is one of the key differences. China has the ability to disrupt, and they have. But Israel has the ability to destroy us. China competes with us economically and even militarily. But there is no comparison. Which is why, like I said, I thought that this intelligence agent was being a little sleight of hand in terms of, how he would talk about China being the biggest threat. But in reality, what he's really telling you is that Israel is the biggest threat to the United States. I don't think PBD had any clue that this conversation was going to go this way, which is why he's trying very hard to direct it in another way, push it in another direction. And it's not working. So credit where credit is due. But it's like I've said before, it's kind of the way I feel about Tucker Carlson. And we'll get to him in a minute. I believe Tucker is intelligence. And I believe that Tucker deals with intelligence on the regular. And I believe that there are a lot of people in intelligence who are not evil, manipulative bastards. I believe that they are fully aware, keenly aware of the detrimental direction this country is going in right now. And they are trying to sound the alarm before it's too late. And that, to me, is what this CIA agent is doing right now. He's telling us, he's giving us the blueprint. There's a reason why they are pushing so very, very hard for data centers, for AI influence. This is all MO from Israel. This isn't competing with China. This is about fortifying Israel's position. Look at all of the people who are in this. Look at how the people of this country are rejecting it versus those that are embracing it. It truly is the haves versus the have-nots. And the haves obviously it's a very small group, but they've got mostly everything. And everybody else is just trucking along, pretending like our economy is not going to collapse if we don't deal with this problem. This is why our channel focuses on this primarily every single time. Because in the end, it is all about weeding through the bullshit and focusing on the tangibles that really matter. And this matters. This matters very much. Let's finish it up.
They learn their cyber capability from us. They can rent their cyber capability from Russia. So when we talk about cyber attacks, space-based attacks, when we talk about influence campaigns, propaganda campaigns, the top of the list of capability is Israel. It's not all strapping bombs and flying in planes. It's much more sophisticated. It's sophisticated enough that they can cross a border into an enemy country and launch drones, right? We underestimate Israel's capability constantly. I don't know how many times you have to see pagers blow up before you realize Israel's far more capable than we believe they are.
Do you see them as an ally?
I see them as a country that is out for their own best national interests. And when you align with that, you're on their good side. And when you don't align with that, you're not.
It's a
And that's all of it. He basically said in no uncertain terms, is Israel an ally? The answer is no. But he did it in a diplomatic, political way of saying, no, they're not an ally. In fact, they're our biggest enemy. And we know that. You want to know how I would join the U.S. military? To fight Israel. I still have an itch to serve my country. I probably always will. But if it was for that cause, yes. Because it's the future of the United States. That's what's riding here. And as I said, PBD got a little too cute with who he thought he was bringing on. And it turned out to be a complete misfire, as it should be. And hopefully this clip will do well.
Specific to Bibi or Israel, period?
I think it's both, but Bibi has taken it to the next level because of the corruption issues that he's also stuck in. There are multiple intelligence surveys out there that talk about how Israel cannot be trusted as an ally to the extent that, say, France or Italy or Germany can be.
And in that case, I think he's being a little too generous about that point, about whether or not the real issue here is comparing sort of apples to oranges as far as who is an ally and who is not. And I think the thing that we have to remember, you have to be able to read between the lines. Somebody who works in intelligence is only going to tell you so much. He's going to lead you to a point. But he's only going to take it so far. He is not going to be the person who is going to solve the problem. He's going to give you all the cues. And in this case, he intimated that China is 50% of the problem and Israel is 25%. If you listen to what he's actually saying, he's basically saying China is a little bit of a problem. I don't even regard Russia as a problem. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about with Islam being the problem. But essentially, Israel is all of the problem, with very rare exception. China is part of the equation because they can compete with us economically. But in terms of everything else, it's all Israel. And that's what he said. And that's why PBD was squirming the way that he was. And credit where credit is due to whoever clipped it. Definitely made a difference.